Welcome back to the Virtual Light broadcast at lightworker.com. Today's date is February 27, 2010. Let's welcome back Sandy.
Welcome back to the Virtual Light broadcast. Our second guest today is a lady whose work is very dear to my heart. As anybody who knows me knows, I've been very much involved with the new kids over the past decade. And I am thrilled to be welcoming Suzi Milър with us today. Suzi is, she was, I don't know if she still is, a speech-language pathologist. She's also the author of a book called Awesomeism, a new way to understand the diagnosis of autism. And Suzi has had the most amazing experiences over the past 10 years with many of the new children, which she's going to share with us. Suzi, welcome to the Virtual Light broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
10 years ago, you were working as a speech-language pathologist, and you had an experience that completely altered your life with a 4-year-old non-verbal child who was diagnosed with autism. Tell us about that and the impact it had on you.
Changed my life the whole way around. I was a pediatric speech-language pathologist. I had a private practice in the state of Maine and was given a new child on my caseload who was diagnosed with autism. I had not had much experience with children diagnosed with autism because I graduated with my master's degree in 1986, and at that time, quite frankly, there just weren't that many children that did have autism, so there wasn't a lot of teachings about that. So I went to see this child at his daycare center, and he was walking back and forth in his daycare center saying, "It's the millennium, it's 1999. And I looked at this little kid, and he was beautiful and amazing, and I thought, this is kind of a weird, freaky little kid. You know, it was really interesting to see him. But at that moment, he turned, and he looked right at me, and eye-to-eye contact, and he says, "Master." And at that moment, what you feel inside, or what I felt in my body, was something that I had never felt before. It was as if he had looked into me and saw something within me that I didn't even know existed. And I remember the first thought that went through my mind was, who's the master here? You know, who sees who? And so I took this young boy to the back of the daycare center where we were going to work, you know, by ourselves and have some privacy. And I shut the door, and in all reality, and quite frankly, I didn't really know what to do with him, because he's, you know, one of the first kids I had seen. And so I shut the door, and I sat down with my back against the door. And I remember thinking to myself, I just want him to show me what he wants me to do, because I didn't, you know, he clearly didn't want to be in the room. So I sat there for a second, and as I had that thought, what I did not bank on was the fact that the minute that I had that thought, all of a sudden I see this cherub of a child who's a 4-year-old, big brown eyes, and all of a sudden his light body is floating above his physical body. Well, number one, I'm a speech-language pathologist at that point, and pretty clinical at that, pretty scientific, and I didn't know what the heck I was seeing. And so as I watched him, you know, I'm looking at this, and I say to myself, I wonder what that is. Next strange thing that happens is I hear inside of me, that's my light body, and I need to integrate my light body into my physical body. That's why you're here.
So he was communicating telepathically with you?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a bad day and I should just go home and start again. You know, it's like, let's do this all over again. Yeah. So
then that completely blew your world apart. You suddenly discovered all these gifts you didn't know you had.
Yeah, he actually took me through a process that lasted 1.5 years. And within that 1.5 years, I was introduced to multidimensional reality. I was introduced to my own gifts that I didn't know existed up until that point. I was also introduced to any number of, at that time, what I was understanding as guides and things like that were going to come in and teach me very specific skills on how do you take a high vibrational being and integrate them back into physical form. What does that actually look like? And so that's the process I went through over 1.5 years. So yes, it absolutely rocked my world and now I can say I'm thrilled that it did.
Changed the complete tenor of your work?
Yeah, I couldn't look at anything the same after that, because now everything was energy. Everything was a multidimensional experience. Nothing was just as it appeared to be. And I remember thinking, as we interacted, you know, on the one hand, you see this beautiful little boy who somebody is saying is disordered. And I'm looking at the multidimensional gifts that this child is bringing to me and going, there is nothing disordered about him. I may be a little bit off today, but there's nothing disordered about these children. So different, yes, clearly different, but disordered, far from it. They are bringing gifts. I feel blessed, actually, to share a planet with these kids, because it's absolutely amazing what they're capable of.
And, of course, in the past decade, we've seen the incidence of autism skyrocket, along with ADD, ADHD, and everybody's trying to put these children into boxes, when, in fact, what we should be doing is listening to what they have to teach us about evolution and who we really are.
Absolutely, absolutely. If we could just shift our perception just ever so slightly, and not only for what's outside of us, but what's inside of us, then all of a sudden you get a whole new landscape, and you realize that that child that has been sitting in front of you all this time is this amazing being that is here to teach you unbelievable things, but we have a tendency to keep looking and saying, oh, you're broken, we got to fix you. I'm going to spend so much time fixing you that I have forgotten to maybe consider the fact that you are different, not disordered, and your difference is bringing me a gift. And that's really what this work is all about. It's really about shifting that perception so that people understand themselves from a higher vibrational frequency, thus connecting with these kids where they're really living, which is an amazing place.
You've travelled extensively over the last 10 years doing seminars and workshops with parents and children, and showing these parents what it is that the children want the parents to know. In many cases, you've actually given the parents information from the children about what they can do differently to change this situation in the family environment.
Absolutely.
And you've said that these children are quite often reflecting dynamics going on in the family.
Right. What I understood from working initially with this child that kind of blew me open, and then all the other ones that followed, was that when you are a high vibrational being and you function in that way all the time, if that's, say, your prime directive, then your vibrational frequency is very clear. You don't necessarily have a lot of your own stuff to work through because of the vibrational frequency that you're coming in at. So what ends up happening as a gift to the planet, these children have the ability to be very clear reflectors. So very often they will come and they will interact with their families or their teachers or their doctors. And what ends up happening is when there is a discord between who the person actually is and what they are being in the world at that moment, the child will act that out. A lot of times these children are nonverbal, and so they don't have the ability to say, hey, Mom, you know, you're saying this thing and acting this way, or you're feeling this way and saying this, and they don't jive. They don't have the ability to do that, so what they end up doing is acting it out. And as they act it out, then once parents understand that, then they can use that outer landscape that they're seeing all the time to see what's just a little out of balance there. It's a wonderful, talk about children as our spiritual path, if you will. The opportunities that are presented in this particular population are fabulous. And unbeknownst to these parents, they have had these children in their lives all the time, but they just haven't known how to look at it. It's not that they were doing it wrong. It's just that they didn't know that what was happening in the behavior may be a reflection. I'll give you a really good example. One of the kids that I work with right now, he was walking around day in and day out, and he does have some verbal communication, but it's pretty repetitive. So he was saying, I got to make a list. I got to make a list. I got to make a list. Where's my list? Where's my list? Where's my list? Well, interestingly enough, the mother, she called me and she said, she'd worked with me a while, and she said, Susie, I know what this one's about. She goes, because in my head, I have this list that's 20 miles long, and I don't stay present with myself because I'm always on my list, and I always got to do the next one and the next one. And so she said, as soon as I got it, he had been walking around for 3 or 4 days with this list, perseverating on it. As soon as she got the awareness that it was her list, it was her inability to be present with herself that was causing the anxiety, causing the repetition, the child literally walked into her bedroom with his list one day, put it down on her bed and said, I'm all done, and walked away. Yeah, and see, this is how quickly this happens. I mean, when people see that piece and they use it in that way, I mean, hundreds of examples just like that.
In many cases, you've had children who, as far as the parents are concerned, you've cured, when in fact all that's happening is by, as in this example, the parents get the message, the child doesn't have to display that kind of behavior anymore.
That's right. Well, and another thing is, too, is, you know, what is cured? You know, I mean, first there has to be a disorder if there's a cure. And the other thing is that a lot of times, you know, you have to honor everybody's path as their own. So different children are working out different things with their parents. And I think that the gift that I do bring to it is maybe the ability to communicate just flat out what that gift is, so there's no guesswork in it. So we can say, this is what's being presented to you, this is what's being offered, and now you can choose to take that or not take it. But when you do choose to take it, the perception shifts. The child is able to become more present and more aware with himself. But also there is the potential and possibility that's amazing that allows the parent to have more multidimensional experiences. Because one way or another, it's really just about communication, isn't it? It's really about what gift am I trying to offer you, and what gift are you trying to offer me?
And that is actually happening, isn't it? And that's part of the children's reason for being here and the message that they want to give. Tell us a little bit about the multidimensional aspects, because this has informed a lot of where your work is progressing to. Yeah. And as well as Blue Star Brilliance, which you founded, which is the website that deals with the parents and the children, you've also developed a new project called the New Human Experience Project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the children have... I work with children coming in individually. Children separately come in and telepathically communicate or bilocate and give me information about what to give the parents and that kind of thing. But they also come in as a collective, the collective of children with autism, or the collective of child sometimes just comes in and talks to me. So over the last couple months, what they've been telling me is in 2010, you have a population of people, 1 in 150 families, or whatever the statistic is now, has the ability to shift their consciousness very quickly at this time in history. These families have been living with a very high vibrational being that has been shifting them around day in and day out since the time they hit the planet. And now the children are telling me that in 2010, a lot of these parents, not just them, but the collective, has the opportunity to understand their own multidimensional reality. And as they experience their own multidimensional reality, then of course they have new potentials and possibilities that they didn't even know existed. So the children, I've been listening to 4-year-olds for a long time now, and I take really good direction. So when they came in recently, I said, okay, they said the next part is to help the adults step up to the plate and understand their own multidimensional awareness. They said, we've been on the planet for quite some time now. As a collective, we've raised the vibrational frequency. Our part of the puzzle we've done to the degree that we think that, we were supposed to. And now the parents have the opportunity to experience this. So create something called the New Human Experience Project. and allow everybody who's ready to experience their multidimensional selves, experience it now. Because we need people who are consciously aware of themselves in a much bigger perspective to start creating where we're going. Because, it's one thing to say this is what the shift is going to look like when we get there, but quite frankly, vibrationally, there's an aspect of us, there's a frequency of us that's already there. And we can tap into that now. And there are many of us that can start making some strides towards creating the kind of existence that we actually would like to have in these higher vibrational frequencies.
So what kind of experiences are people having on this project?
Yep. Lots of telepathy going on, lots of understanding of our ability to bilocate, lot of ability to heal beyond time and space, to shift vibrational frequency at will so that I'm no longer bound by holding a certain vibrational frequency. If I notice that it's low for one reason, I can turn it up. I can shift it. Those are kind of some of the base level skills that happen very naturally. And if you consider the fact that if we raise our vibrational frequency, the only thing that's really happening is we're dialing up to a new level of communication. So us talking like this right here, right now, in this vibrational frequency is one thing. But we're also able to dial that up and speak telepathically to each other. There's no real mystery in it other than the fact that it's a different vibrational frequency. So our ability to say, say you come to me and you're a friend and I'm sick today and I would help you and nurture you or maybe take you someplace and get something. At a higher vibrational frequency, that's healing beyond time and space, because in their world, they truly function as one unit. They function in their oneness. So doesn't it make sense that in our oneness, we can all communicate with each other very easily because we truly know that we're one. Of course, if something's going on with you that I can notice from the outside, but maybe you can't notice from the inside, of course there's a healing that can take place beyond time and space because we're just one. Of course, if I want to be with you and, I'm here and you're in Arizona, of course I can go to you, because it's...
Well, I've had experience of this because you actually connected with my grandson while he was asleep at night and he was in England, and I wouldn't have believed it if you hadn't told me things that he told you that a 5-year-old couldn't possibly know.
They know a lot more than you think they know.
And I knew the details. Yeah, I knew the details were absolutely verifiable. So, that was a huge piece of proof for me. But one of the things that fascinates me about this product is you actually are collaborating with some people in England, a company called A Creative Space, and they have a particular piece of technology that can actually prove to people the shifts that are happening while they're undergoing these experiences. Tell us about that.
Yeah, one of the things that's happening right now is because people have the opportunity to be opened up to their multidimensional reality, that experience for some people can happen like it did for me, which was quite frankly a little bit disconcerting at times. You've got all these things happening and you don't know what it's about. And so I kind of learned by trial and error. Right now, the potential for a lot of people to open up in that way is huge, and I would prefer that people have it be graceful and easy. And one of the things that's happening with a creative space is that the Creative Space Bioresonance Program gives the ability to balance frequencies back and forth as people are going through transition. So it holds a vibrational frequency for you based on where you're going. So the nice thing about this project is when people come into this project as a telecall or something like that, and we raise the vibrational frequency so that they can experience themselves from a new perception, the bioresonance program is kind of in the background as a support system. And it holds that frequency that we get to in each teleclass, and it continually balances you for the next 2 weeks to that frequency until you're ready for the next one. And the other thing that you talked about, the proof part of it, is that right now, especially when you're just developing your multidimensional skills, it's true that you'll think to yourself, oh, what was that? Did that happen, or did that really happen? What happens with the bioresonance program is there is a printout that's given as well. And the printout is able to pick up very subtle levels of frequency change. And as you pick up those subtle levels of frequency change, it's printed out. And so you get to see, I think there might be something going on here. And all of a sudden you get a printout that says, this, that, or the other thing. It talks about maybe something that's changing in your physical body or something that's being balanced in your emotional state.
How is this calibrated to me individually? How is this machine able to tune into me?
For you. Actually, in this case, we use a bioresonance pendant. I think I have one actually, so you guys can see it. It's just a little pendant, and it has a receiver on it. And basically what ends up happening is no matter where you're located, it's just based on frequency. So this little piece of jewelry ends up being just the thing that can send the information back and forth. And by keeping it on your body, it just simply allows your body to allows your energy field to pick up the different pieces and send it back to the bioresonance program so that it can register what you need for that particular balance at that particular time.
When are you launching this project?
We actually, today is the launch actually, but we will start our first course will be on the 10th of March. So, yeah.
So where can people go to find out more about this?
Yeah, the website is newhumanexperienceproject.com, and you can also find out some information at Blue Star Brilliance.
Just going back to the children and the parents who I know are suffering enormously, you offer some free teleclasses, don't you, for the parents, called your Free Fridays. And any parent with a child who's diagnosed with something or other can attend those calls free and get a lot of support.
Yeah, those have really become a place for all kinds of people who both, not just parents, people who work with these kiddos, and not just children with autism, but anybody who has a child that is considered a high vibrational kid, so whatever challenges they're meeting by being a high vibrational child in an environment that hasn't quite caught up to who they are yet, it's kind of become just a nice chat place for people. The information from the kids is given at each Free Friday, and then it's opened up for questions. And also, a lot of people are starting to talk about what their own experiences are as well, which is great.
If you had to, just before we finish, if you had to sum up in one very short sentence the most important message that the children want us to know, what would it be?
We are so much more than we think we are. We are so much more than we think we are. And they are here to gently and sometimes not so gently reveal that to us. So that's absolutely beautiful. They have, we're so much more than we think we are.
Suzi Milър, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. We'll be back in a few moments with Steve and Barbara. Stay tuned.